Start. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vandeham Shri Guror Shri Yuttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavascha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvatam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradaine Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaura Tvishe Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Janmadhyasya Tanvayaditaratas Charte Subhigyaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Muyanti Yat Surayaha Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dhamna Svena Sada Nirastakurakam Satyam Param Dhimai Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Swasti Astu Vishwasya Khalah Prasidatam Dhyayantu Bhutani Shivam Mitho Dhiya Manasya Bhadram Bhajtana Dhokshaje Avishyatam No Matirapyaituki. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th Canto, chapter 9, and chapter 8, beginning from verse number 22. And this is the story of King Bharat, who was a very great devotee of the Lord and great king of India, who renounced his kingdom and went to Himalayas to meditate. And he was very elevated, but then he became attached to this baby deer, which we read the story. And this whole description of his attachment is being described. This path of devotion is very simple but very difficult to understand. And the reason is that we are used to doing things which are not related to devotion. And therefore, devotion is something foreign to us. And for that reason, all these stories are being told. People can follow the path of renunciation or path of karma. Either you do your things, you live normal life, or you can give up everything and you understand this is spiritual life. Bhakti is complex. You give up and you don't give up simultaneously. So it is a path of attachment and non-attachment simultaneously. Here the attachment is for God, and at the same time you are not going away and giving up things around. Because where can you go? Everything belongs to God. So that's why it is very difficult to understand also who is a devotee. Because you can also live as a renounced person and perform devotion as Bharat was doing. You can also live in household and perform devotion as gopis we will read. And usually we are used to seeing black and white. The mind can understand binary system, 0 and 1. But neither 0 nor 1 or both 0 and 1 simultaneously, that is bhakti. So here it is shown that he renounced and now he is attached, and he is attached to a deer and taking care of. He was very compassionate. So it looks like he did not do anything wrong. What is wrong if you save the deer from drowning in the water? So this, and it also shows how the person behaves when one becomes attached to something. How that object becomes very sweet. Whatever you are attached to, then that person, that object looks very wonderful to you. Not to others, but to you. So there are many deer in the forest, but this one was very special. When you fall in love with somebody, that person becomes special for you. For others, he may be just ordinary person. So this is being described here, how special this deer was and how much he was enjoying the association of this deer. So he says, Asidat Asadit Havishi Barhishi Dushite Mayavapalabdho Bhita Bhita Sapadi Uparatarasa Rishikumar Vad Avahita Karana Kalapayasate. He is remembering because he is feeling separation. When you feel separation from your lover, you remember the good things about that. So he says that sometimes the king will sit down to do a yajna and he will have his material ingredients to offer into the fire which he has put on the kusa grass. And the deer will come and touch it with his mouth. So it will become polluted. So you cannot offer things which are touched by an animal into the yajna. So then Bharat, he will get angry at the deer and he says, what nonsense have you done? Why did you touch this? So then the deer will become scared and he will sit down, just like as if he is the son of a sage, Rishi Kumar. Like previously in India there were many sages living in the forest, but they were married and they had children who were very well behaved, not like hyperactive kids of 21st century. So these children were very quiet, well behaved, so the deer will sit down as if he is like a small Rishi Kumar, son of a sage. And he will attentively look at Bharat, Avahita Karana Kala, as if he has not done anything wrong. So he is remembering this now, how the deer was behaving. So Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti comments, Asaditam Havir Yasmin Tasmin Barishi Darbhe Dantas Parshin Dusite Sati. So he says, when I will keep this offering onto the grass and he will come and touch it with his teeth, maybe he wanted to eat the grass and thus pollute it. Barhishi Vishaya Dushnam Kritva Stitavati. And then he will sit down. Maya upalabdha ah kimare karosi iti adhikshipta. And then I will chastise him. He says, what have you done? And then he will stop. Uparat krida avid karana kalapa nischali kritam sarvendri. And he will sit down very quietly, peacefully. So now he was speaking like this wandering, but he could not see the deer. Already the day was coming to an end. So when he was walking around, he saw the footprints. And when he saw the footprints of the deer, then he started praising the earth. And this earth must be very fortunate that she has the footprints of my deer. So in that he says, Kim varaya charitam tapas tapasvinya anaya yam avani savinaya krishna saratanaya tanutara subhaga sivatam akhura khura padapam kati bhi dravana vidur aturasya kripunasyam dravana padavim susiyanti atmanam cha sarvataha krita kautukum dvijanam swarga apurva kamanam daiva yajnam karoti. So he says, oh indeed, what great austerities this earth must have performed to be blessed by the footprints of my dear dear. Because I am hankering for him and she is having these marks on her chest. And I who have lost my wealth, is calling this deer as his own wealth, Dravana. Aturasya kripunasya, I am so fallen, indigent, that mama dravana padavim susyanti. So the earth is as if informing me that this is the way your wealth has walked. She is hinting me that I can go this way. So sarvata krita kautukam dvijanam sarva parmanam devayam karoti. In this way she is as if ready for sacrifices, because there is this understanding that wherever the black deer wander, that place on earth used to be very popular for doing yajna. Because when yajnas are performed, they have two things which are very important. One is the time when it should be performed. So therefore they have jyotis to see the right muhurta. Right? So there is a lot of deliberation which muhurta, which nakshatra, which constellation is good for which type. So there are various types of yajna. There are sakam yajna, niskam yajna. You want to do to attain a specific goal or fulfill some specific desire, then correspondingly you have to have proper time, because that energy can easily be harnessed in that time. And second is place. It's not that you can do it anywhere. So place and time, and then of course the process of yajna, how it has to be done. But these two things are also important. So if you want to do some spiritual yajna for spiritual benefit, then holy places like Vrindavan, Banaras, Haridwar, Prayag. Actually the name Prayag comes because that's where Brahma performed a yaga. Yaga is another name for yajna. And pra means big. It's a very big sacrifice he did. That's why the name comes Prayag. And it's a very holy place. It's the confluence of three rivers. That's where Kumbh Mela will be next year. So there are very specific places in India for doing these yajnas. And also near Goshala, on the bank of the holy river. These are considered as very auspicious places for doing. So he is saying that this earth has become suitable because the deer, wherever the black deers used to walk, then that is considered as a very auspicious place. Krishna Sa. So Sri Vishnu says that iti bahuda pralapya utthaya bahir nirgatya tat kurakhatha bhubhaga upalabdhya premna eva aropitem na tatra mahatmena swam sadikshepam sambodhya vilapti are mandabhagya bharata. So first he was sitting inside his hut and waiting for this deer and thinking how this deer was behaving. Then he got out of his hut and he is walking. And when he is walking, he sees the footprints of this deer, and then out of love he is superimposing his thoughts onto it. He is conjecturing all this in his mind. The greatness of the deer, and because of that greatness of the earth, and he is lamenting and criticizing himself that I am so unfortunate that this deer has left me. So in the first canto we read that earth was very fortunate when Krishna was walking on it, because it was decorated by the footprints of Lord Krishna. So earth is being glorified there. Here Bharat is glorifying the earth because of the footprints of the deer. So this shows his attachment, how deeply he was attached, and this deer is God for him. Actually more than God, because he was already meditating in God and he gave up that meditation and is now meditating in the deer. So in this way he is saying, Are Manda Bhagya Bharata. He says, Oh most unfortunate Bharat. He is calling himself. You are so unfortunate. Vritha Tapaswin. You are a useless sage or austere person. Why? Anya avanya kim tapa acharita. He says it is the earth who must have done some austerities, because she has the footprints and not me. Tat tapas tvaya ne taptam iti bhava. You Bharati, you have not done this. He is referring to himself as a third person. He says you have not done austerities like the earth. Yadva vishesh anuktya are chaturdas loka brutare brute yusmasu madhye aniyayati yusmakam idrisham tapo nasti iti bhava. Or he is actually not referring to himself, but he is referring to the whole universe. He says, Oh you people of this universe, who are you? You are nothing. It is only the earth which is fortunate, because she has these footmarks of my deer. Tanutara ityadi visheshanai tan madhuri ashwade. So he is calling the beautiful deer, how wonderful he is trying to relish the sweetness of the deer. Dravin padvim suchayanti bho dukhina bharata kim rodishi anaya eva kurakshunaya padavya vanam pravishantam dragabalakam swapranadhanam prapsasi iti kripya mam ashvashyati iti. So when he sees these footmarks, he is conjecturing as if earth is telling to Bharat. He says, please don't cry. I am giving you the hunch. You can go this way and then you will find your wealth inside the forest and be happy. So don't cry. As if earth is trying to show him the way and console him. Atmanam swam chatadhi padpankadi bhirmandalatvat krit kautukam devi yajnam yagyasthalam karoti. And as if earth has become blessed by these marks, so that she has become the suitable place for yajna. Yasmin desa mriga Krishna tasmin dharman nibodhata. Because in the Manusmriti it is said that the land where the black deer wander, that land is considered as very auspicious and fit for religious activities. So now in this way, when he was wandering around, the day came to an end and it was night. And the moon came. So he looks at the moon and speaks the following statement. Apisvidasau Bhagavan Udipatirayam Mrigpati Bhayam Mritamataram Mrigbalakam Swashnam Paribhrashtam Anukampaya Kripana Jana Vatsalah Paripati. He says, oh indeed, this moon is so benevolent that he has protected my child whose mother died at the birth because there is a fear of lions and tigers in the forest. And inside the moon there is a deer. So he thinks that the moon is keeping the deer in his lap. And thus he feels happy that my deer is safe and protected. So this shows the height of madness in love. Because when you're too much in love, then you start seeing everything reminds you of that person. If you see somebody wearing a cloth like that, then it reminds you. Any sign, any sound. So he sees this spot in the moon and he thinks this is the deer. So he says, because the deer got lost from the ashram, then out of his grace the moon is protecting him. Because you know that in the forest there are ferocious animals. So this moon is very compassionate. Urdhvam avalokya tatra upalabdhe chandre samragam sambhavena. So he looks up and looks at the moon and then he thinks that this is the deer. Apisviditi swashramat paribhrashtamiti mameva papishtasya anavdhanat. And this deer, he got lost from the ashram and he says, this is because of my mistake. I am so sinful that I did not care for the deer and that's why I got lost. Otherwise, how is it possible? If you have a small baby in your house and he goes on the road and gets lost, then it's your mistake, not of the baby. The baby does not know. Bhagavaniti bhagavatam vinayidrisham bhagyam na sambhavet. So he is calling the moon as Lord, and the meaning of that is that such nature can happen only by the grace of the Lord, that he is protecting the deer, which I was not able to do. So now he is feeling the cooling rays of the moon, and he further speaks. Kimva atmaj vishlesa jvara dava dahana sikhabhir uktapyamana hridayasthala nidhinikam mam upashritam nigritanayam shishira santa anurag gunita nijavadana salila amritamaya gavasti bhi swadhayati. So he says that not only that this moon has protected the deer, but he knows that I, whose heart was burning because of separation from my own sons, because he gave up he had 5 sons, kingdom, wife, everything gave. And then I took shelter of this deer cub. And now this deer is lost, so I am suffering and burning in the fire of separation. So when there is separation from the lover, this also creates a heat in the body. The body feels as if there is fever in the body due to separation. The Agni Tattva becomes excited in separation. So he says, knowing this very well, that I am suffering from the heat of separation, fire of separation, the moon is sending his cool rays to make me calm down. So his peaceful, affectionate and cool rays, which are nectarian, because in Vedic scriptures, moon is considered as a watery planet. Although modern science does not confirm it, But according to Vedic description, moon is a cool luminary. It is very cooling, and it is supposed to be jalmaya, watery. So that's why the moonstone is for cooling, right?
Mm-hmm.
It comes from water. Pearl. Pearl is the moonstone. And because moon actually was born from the ocean, and churning of the ocean was done, and moon also came out of that. So moon is supposed to be very cooling, like water is cooling. You are feeling hot to take shower. So, and the rays of the moon, they are considered as nectarian. The taste which you get in fruits, flowers, and vegetables is because of the moon. If the vegetables don't get moonlight, then they don't have much taste. So therefore the vegetables which are grown where there is not much moonlight, and a lot of flower, the vegetables don't get very tasty. So it is the moon which brings the taste to the fruits and flowers by her nectarian rays. So therefore in India there is one full moon night, Sarad Purnima, which will come next month. So that night there is a tradition of cooking sweet rice and then keeping it in the moonlight whole night and then eat it next day morning. So that is supposed to be very healthy. So he's saying that these nectar-like rays are coming down and consoling me, whose heart is burning because of the suppression. So Chandra Kirananam, there is a type of literature in India which is called Sahitya. There is one subject to be studied. Sahitya it's a combination of poetics and aesthetics. So there are certain things which they have belief. One of them is that when a heroine is feeling separation from hero, then she becomes thin and she feels heat. So there is a description that they make band from lotus leaves for her to feel cool, and because there was no AC in those days. Now if somebody has to write, they will talk about air conditioner. So in India is a hot country, so they try to show how the body has to be kept cool for the heroine who is feeling separation. And yeah, this very, because poetics has a lot of conjecture in it. So how the body becomes emaciated because of separation and becomes very thin and does not eat. So all kinds of slokas are there describing verses that the hero comes back, goes out for some work and sees feeling separation, becomes weak, so emaciated. When he comes back, she's standing in front but he cannot see her because she's so thin. So he is searching for her, where is she? So these are some of the poetics. Basically you have to understand these things in a more poetic manner. You have to know the poetic style. So that is being described here. So he says, Chandra Kirananam Dahakatvam Anubhuya Aho Madatmaj Virahe Shita Kiranopi Ushmana Kirano Bhavati Hanta Hanta Sakime Samayo Bhavishyati. So he is explaining it in a little different way, that because he was feeling separation, so much separation, when there is too much separation, then even the cool things look hot. So he says that he was, even these moon rays, were like heating his body, burning, because he was just burning from inside. There is heat generated inside. So he says because of the inner heat, even the cool rays of the moon were appearing warm to him. And therefore he was saying, Hanta Hanta Sakime Samyo Bhavishyati. Alas, alas, will ever that time come to me when I will see my dear. Chandropiyam mam shishirishyati iti avalasana akinchati. And then he says, well, this moon is trying to cool me. And then he says, Upashrito mirgi taniyodam tatha vidham mam chandroyam sudhayati virasantap santaptasya angasya sudhalipti karana sudhavantam kim no karishyati. So he says, will this moon ever cool my body with her nectarian cool rays, who is suffering from suppression? Swavinmatar lokiti matpuluka rupam kai shishiram satat santam anugram cha mai anuragena gunitam cha yadvadan salilam puna puna shravat tadeva amritamaya gabhastaya tailoke himantrika yatha vadan salilai stapam shamayanti tatheva ayam api iti artha. So he is making a little bit of comparison that when people do yajna sacrifice, there is fire, so people who are chanting mantra, they start sweating. So then there is sweat on the face, but this sweat is actually cooling. So like this says that these moon rays are actually like the sweat coming from the face of the moon, and they are cooling me. That's all he's thinking. So, Upsrito Mrigitane iti pathe saeva madgatre suprem manus suksparsena. And he's giving one more meaning, that it is not that moon has taken the deer, he says that it will come to me and give pleasure to me. Will it ever happen that? So this is all the description, and now the scene little bit changes. Now comes a turn in the story, because he is too much suppression, so it's time for him to die. Cannot live without the deer. Evam aghatman manoratha akul hirdayo mृगदारका भासेन स्वारब्ध कर्मणा योगारंभणतो विभ्रंशिता सहयोग तापसो भगवद आराधन लक्षणात् च कथम अतिरथा इतरथा जाति अंतर एण गुण आसंग साक्षात् निश्रेयस प्रतिपक्षतया प्राक् परित्यक्त दुश्चद हृदय विजातस्य तस्येवं अंतराय विहत योगारंभणस्य राजर्षे भरतस्य तावन मृगार्भक पोषण पालन प्रीणन लालन संगेन अविगणयत आत्मानं अहिर आखुगिलम दुरतिक्रम काल कराल रस आपन्नत. So now this is a very long sentence. In Sanskrit sometimes you can make very long sentences. Like whole one page can be one sentence. There is a book called Kadambari. And that one sentence runs into few pages. Yeah, if you read it, it's amazing. So like, it's a very long sentence. You have to of course break it in English to translate. So in this way, it was not possible that the desire of the king will be fulfilled. Because who knows where the deer has gone. So the heart of king was always filled with this desire to have the deer, and the deer never came. It went away, maybe met some other deers and joined his club. And he used to come back. So therefore he was very disturbed in his mind. And this deer was actually manifestation of his past karma, which came to create an obstacle in his sadhana. So therefore he said that this was arabdha karma. So because of this deer, Bharat, a great king who was engaged in the worship of the Lord, and he was very elevated in his meditation, he fell down from that. He became deviant, he stopped all that. Otherwise, how is it possible? If you don't consider this deer as an obstacle, an outcome of past karma, how is it possible that such a thing happens? Because he considered even the path of liberation as an obstacle, because he was on the path of bhakti. So those who take to path of bhakti, they are not interested even in liberation, but they want to be with Lord and serve Him. So he even considered the path of moksha, the liberation, the jnana marg, as an obstacle. He is the same person who has given up his own sons, whom he produced, took care of them, and brought them up nicely and had great love and affection. He gave them up. And yet he became so attached to the deer, who is not even a human being. So he said this cannot be explained by anything else except that there was some karma which he has to go through. So in this way, the great royal sage Bharata, he became overpowered by the obstacle and thus became deviated from his practice and became completely entangled, absorbed, occupied in taking care of the deer, feeding him, playing with him, thinking of him, meditating on him, and he forgot completely for what he has gained. And in this situation, finally that came which is inevitable, and that is death. So, death is most certain, everything else is uncertain. So now the time came for him, the Kal, just like a snake who may enter into the hole of a mouse. So snakes, they go into the hole of a mouse.
Or the hole of the mouse.
Yes?
Yeah.
And then they catch.
And the mouse was eating the snake.
Mouse was eating the snake?
Yeah.
No, I've never seen that. We have snakes here in our garden, and just today somebody saw it. And these snakes, they look for mouse. They come even up to third floor in my balcony, I saw them. Looking for mouse. Go on the tree. Because this mouse, they climb the tree, and they go here, and so the snake also follows them. So when the snake comes, catches the mouse and swallows alive, it does not chew it, it just swallows. Have you seen snakes swallowing frog?
Getting bigger. The snakes are getting bigger and don't get out of the hole again sometimes.
So he says that like that the death comes and catches you from your hole. You live very safely in your house thinking I'm protected. Right? But death comes there also. Pulls you out. Said, chalo, Let's go, now it's time. Then you cannot say, well, I have this thing to do, that thing to do. No excuse. You have to do. So as they say that time and tide wait for none. So time means death. So now his time came. Like snake. So this is a very interesting comment he makes now. He says, Mriga darakam abhashyati prakashyati yattena swarabdha karma. So whenever somebody is born, then there is a type of karma which becomes manifest in that life. There are three types of karma, which is called Kriyamana karma, one is called Sanchit karma, and there is called Prarabdha karma. So there is a Sanchit karma, which is like a deposit savings account. Everybody has a karma account. And there is a Kriyamana karma, which you are earning now. And then there is some account which is utilized in this lifetime. So when a person dies, all his account is there of karma for this life and whatever is remainder from the previous lives. That is called Sanchit karma, accumulated karma. So out of that a portion of karma is taken out which will become manifest in the next birth. That is called Prarabdha karma. So Prarabdha karma means which is being utilized now. It's like a current account. You withdraw money from that and use. So he says that this mriga, this deer, is actually indicating the Prarabdha karma of the king. Because what we get in our life, we are born to particular parents. We did not choose that. Right? We did not make a choice that I want to be born from these parents. I want to be born in America. I want to be born in UK. Nothing like that. Don't make choice like that. This is because of the Prarabdha karma. So many things in our life, they are fixed. And then certain things we can manipulate. But the most important things, or at least things which consider important, they are fixed. So this, from what we get in our life, we can actually know what we must have done in our previous life. So if you are sitting here and listening to this class, then there is something you have done in the past life to be here. Otherwise, why only you and not so many others? So there is a link. Things don't happen by accident. We think like that, but actually nothing is accidental. It's all having a cause. So that's what he is referring to. Mrigdarakam abhashyati prakashyati yat tena swarabdha karma. That his karma gave birth to this deer who has to be born when he was sitting on the bank of this river. Prarabdham hi dvividham. So this prarabdha karma is of two types. Shobhanam, ashobhanam. Good, bad. Some prarabdha karma is good, you like it. Some is bad, which creates trouble, you don't like it. Tatra adyam bhakti priyena api nayana tivra anjana dana nyayena swabhakti utkantha vardhana vidagdhena bhagavata eva swechaya eva prarabdha tulyatvat prarabdham upadyate yadudarko bhakti udreke eva syat tat khalu utpanna ratinam api sambhavede. So usually we will call good karma that if you get a lottery or somebody, your forefathers leave some inheritance for you or something like that, you will say, oh, this is good karma. He is not calling that as good karma because there is a person, he got a lottery and there was a case study done. Then they saw what happened to the person in 1 year. They actually studied many people who got jackpots and what happened to them within 1 year. And they realized, they found that most of these people were actually in terrible situation. So people may think this is a very good karma that you get money like this. But actually money which comes easily also goes easily. Only thing is that in the process it destroys you. Your health, your relations, your life becomes a complete mess. So the other day I was reading about this famous boxer who made I don't know how many millions, and then he is in debt now. I don't know, maybe he made few hundred millions and the guy is in debt. Why? Because all the time drugs, liquor, women. So this is how it happens. So what is good is that which brings you to God. That's what he says. So for him, when he says that there are two types of karma, good and bad. Good means which will bring you towards God. So he says that for devotees, usually such problems don't come. So why Bharat faced this problem? So he is giving a reason. And he is considering this as a good prarabdha karma. Although he became a deviant, he gave, but he shows that this is a good. So he says that Nayana Tivra Anjana Dana Nyayana. In Ayurveda, they have certain ointments, eye drops, also some powders which you apply to the eye, and they are very sharp. I don't know if you have tried some of them. Your eye will burn like anything. But then it improves your eyesight. There is also one plant, one herb. When you are walking in France, Kamala knows that when she pulls it out, a yellow thing comes out of it. I forget the name. And you apply it to the eye, it pains like anything. It's supposed to be good for the eye. So he says that just like if you apply this ointment to your eye, it is very painful, but the end result is that you have good eyesight. So like that Lord who loves his devotees and Bhakti Priyanapi, although he loves his devotees, but to increase the eagerness of his devotees for himself, he creates a situation which looks like prarabdha karma. It is not prarabdha karma, but it appears like that. So that the end result of that will be that the person will become completely absorbed in devotion. So yadudarko bhakti udareke, because prarabdha karma will not lead you to bhakti. Bhakti is not a result of karma. There is no good activity which can bring you to bhakti. Bhakti comes only by the blessing of a devotee or God himself. There is no third way of it. So even by doing charities or by doing welfare, by this, it doesn't bring you to bhakti. It can take you to heaven or give you good birth or good material position, but not devotion to God. Devotion to God happens only by the grace of a devotee of the Lord, or Lord directly. So he says that, so therefore, although he is saying this is prarabdha karma in the verse, but he says this prarabdha karma, it looks like prarabdha karma, but actually it is not a karma. But it is a situation which was created by God himself to make this Bharat even more intensely hankering for God's association. Because when the separation is created, then your mind becomes fully absorbed in it. So he says this can happen even to those who have attained the state of rati or bhav, which is almost perfection in bhakti. So this is called good karma. Everyone is calling it good karma, although it is not karma, really speaking. And then he talks about the second one. Dvitiyam tu prachina prakrita karma mayami. He says the second one is nothing but just the outcome of the past karma. So in other words, when he says that prarabdha karma is of two types, good and bad, the good one is really not coming from the past. Good one is something which is created by God, that he calls as a good prarabdha karma. And it is called prarabdha karma only because it looks like prarabdha karma. Really speaking, it is not a karma. Because karma is something which is a result of, prarabdha karma is something which is an outcome of the past actions. So Bharat's attachment to deer is not a result of something bad he did in his past life. But it is God who arranged it this way so that he becomes more eager. Although in between he seems to be forgetting it. Yadudarko vishayabhinivesa eva syat. And the prarabdha karma will only make you more absorbed in material topics, material objects, material relations. Whether it is so-called good, like you got a lottery, then you become materially absorbed, or bad, that you lose everything, then also you may try to drugs. So both ways, the outcome is only material. So the outcome of real prarabdha karma is always material. An outcome of the prarabdha karma, which looks like prarabdha karma, which is created by God, is always spiritual. This is the distinction. Atra tu shobhanena arabdhena iti sakshat sushabda eva upannasta. So he says that here, in case of Bharat Maharaj, it was a good prarabdha karma because the prefix su has been added to it. Swarabdha, which means good, shobhana. And from that only he is making up this comment. So which means that it is really not prarabdha karma, but it looks like that. Yatha jivan mukta nam abhimana bhavepi abhiman bhasa. Yogena bhakti yogena eva hetuna tapasa sarvam vishatyagrupam tapakarana. So he is called as a yogi, and yogi here means bhakti yogi. Usually whenever we use the word yoga or yogi, we think of Ashtanga yoga or Raj yoga. But here, because yoga is also bhakti yoga, is also yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga, Ashtanga yoga, mainly these four types. So here the word yoga, which is commonly word for all of them, being used for bhakti yoga. Sometimes yoga means Ashtanga yoga, sometimes Raj yoga, sometimes karma yoga, sometimes jnana yoga, sometimes bhakti yoga. So here it means bhakti yoga, and that is understood from the context. And he was performing austerity in the sense that he has given up all sense objects. Api artha chakara yadapi bhakti yogo bahu vignakulo na bhavati tadapi bhagavadichya bhagavad aradhana vidhanchita. So he says that usually it does not happen. Actually a devotee never falls down. It's not possible that a devotee can fall down. And a devotee therefore never becomes too much obstructed in his devotion. Obstructions come to everybody, that we already spoke. But not so much that he will become overpowered by them. It does not happen. So here, why does it happen that he actually gave up his service? So he says, this was will of the Lord, as will become clear from the ultimate outcome. So this is how he explains. He will stop here and he will explain further more now how Bharat will die in the coming days. We'll read that tonight. Do you have any question? No question?
When you say that a devotee can never fall down, what would constitute the devotee that cannot fall down? Is
Means-
that anybody who's just begun to turn towards bhakti or somebody who's
Yeah, really speaking, one who begins properly,
Mhm.
he will also not fall down.
Mm.
And there is a reason for that.
Mhm.
The reason is that there is two types of faith. One is material faith, and there is spiritual faith. Just as I was saying that bhakti is something which comes by the grace of a devotee.
Mm.
So that grace first gives you faith. That's how the grace comes. That you will have faith in the Shastra and the Shastric understanding, and then therefore you will study Shastra. So once you have that faith, you cannot leave it. Because it is spiritual faith. Material faith keeps on changing.
Mm.
Today you have faith in one thing, tomorrow you have faith in another thing. Because material faith is based on the gunas of material nature, sattva, rajas and tamas. And sattva, rajas and tamas, they are always in contest with each other. Sattvam, rajas, tamas. Tamas, sattvam, rajas, tamas. So they are overpowering each other. So sometimes you are in sattva, then you like one thing, then your mind becomes rajasic, then you start liking another thing, then you become tamasic, you like another thing. But this is beyond that. This faith.
So the minute somebody begins to develop faith, then this is the grace of God, and then
If that faith is actually
yeah.
based on Shastra,
Yeah.
otherwise it could also be material faith.
Mm.
Anybody who comes to spiritual path, they all have some faith. But it is not guaranteed that it is spiritual or material.
Mm.
So spiritual faith comes, really speaking, by hearing Shastra from proper source. Then you get Shastriya Shraddha. So Arjuna is asking this question in Bhagavad Gita itself. He says, Ye Shastra Vidhin Utsujya Vartate Kamkarta Tesham Sraddhatuka Krishna Sattvam Ahorajastam. And those who are following spiritual path but not following Shastra properly. So is there faith in Sattva, Rajas or Tamas? So that means there are four types of faith. So there is transcendental faith, there is faith in Sattva, faith in Rajas and faith in Tamas. So this last three faiths can change. The first one will not. So therefore the devotee, he may face problems, but he will not fall down. Alright.
So it seems like we do have a part of free will.
Well, the word, you can say have will, but whether it is free, that is questionable. I say that we have conditioned will, because our will is conditioned by our previous samskaras. Free means God has free will. He is not conditioned by anything. Our mind, our intelligence, everything is already conditioned by so many of our experiences in this life and also coming from the past life. Right? So it's difficult to say.
That little part of free will is
So that will
diluted.
actually works only if you hear Shastra. Because if you don't hear Shastra, then your will is also influenced by material things. You will only choose something in material realm. If you don't have scriptural knowledge, if you don't have scriptural understanding, your knowledge, because will works on knowledge, right? Will means to make a choice. So your choice is dependent on what you know. You cannot choose about something which you don't know. So if you have not understood Shastra, if you have not heard Shastra, then what will happen? That you will choose only on the basis of your knowledge, which is Ashastriya, which is outside the realm of Shastra, which means related with material activities, material objects, material desires. So that is again not any good use of that will. Because the will which God has given to us is He has given us that we choose Him, not anything else. That is the only purpose of this world. Any other purpose is useless. You can become president of America, so what? Your troubles don't stop in that. They become more. Although you fight for it. But what is the gain? At the end of the day, what will you gain? Nothing. So this human life, therefore in the scriptures again and again and again and again, this is stated again and again that it is meant only for spirituality. There is no other purpose of it.
So this brings us back to God's grace, without which we don't have any will.
Yes. Yeah, without grace you cannot.
And that is unconditional.
Yeah, but grace is unconditional. If it is conditional, then it means you are asking for something material.
But I guess I'm confused. How is it unconditional if it's only given to those that are devotees? Am I understanding that correctly?
What is that?
So we're talking about the idea of like a devotee is not going to fall. And is that now by the grace of God or by the knowledge in which we've acquired as a devotee?
No, it is grace of God. First we get the grace, and then after that it follows from that. I mean, grace does not only come just once. It keeps coming in quantas if you take it.
Right.
If you don't create an obstacle to it.
But what about those that in a given lifetime are never devotees? I mean, there's plenty of people, right, that live a lifetime without coming to terms with God.
Coming to terms with?
Yeah, to like find a connection with God. I mean, there's plenty of people that live a lifetime.
Yeah, so they are not getting the grace.
Oh, they don't have the faith to take it when it comes.
Yeah. Obviously everybody is not getting it. Everybody is not so fortunate that everybody is, because you got the human birth, that is true, but if you don't get devotee association, then it's very... Therefore it is said that association with the devotee is the greatest also. Natulayam lavenapi bhagavad sangi sangi. So it is said that the association with the devotee even for a moment cannot be compared even to heaven, even to moksha, nothing. So manuso deho durlabh, that this body, human body is very rare, although it is kshanabhangura, tatrapi durlabham manye vaikuntha priya darsana. But even more rare is to have darsana of vaikuntha priya, devotee of Lord. So that is the greatest blessing one has.
So is it said that this follows when we use our minute amount of free will to love God? If we use our minute amount of free will to love God, is that when the grace follows?
Actually, it's
Like,
what you call catch-22.
yes.
When the sun comes, the darkness goes away.
Mhm.
It is not that you have to throw away the darkness from the room
Mhm.
and then the light will enter,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
It happens simultaneously.
Mhm.
So it's something like that. That itself is grace. When you are able to take interest in hearing Shastra, that is grace. So you can say that it is the grace which is causing, or you can say this itself is the grace. When the light is there, then darkness goes away. When darkness goes away, there is light.
So would it be said then that the grace is always there, but it doesn't always happen that one...
Yeah, of course, grace is always there.
Yes.
It's always there, but whether you will recognize it or not.
Yes. Yeah.
That is the point.
Mhm.
And what is grace made of?
It's an internal potency of God. It's His Swarup Shakti. It's His own. That's why when you get it, then your mind turns towards God. It turns your mind towards Him. Our minds are not turned toward God now. They are only going for something which is ungodly. Well, the God is everywhere, but we make it ungodly because of our awareness. Our awareness is focused only on objects for myself, that I want to enjoy and these things. So this is material energy functioning. Because material energy will take you towards matter, no matter how refined it may be. The gross matter and very refined matter also. But it will take you only towards matter. So there are many spiritual, they call spiritual societies, spiritual organizations. But you have to analyze it whether they are really spiritual. They may be doing just some social welfare work that has nothing to do with spirituality. Maybe good materially, no problem. But if you have to have the litmus test, whether it is spiritual or not, then you have to see whether it is bringing one towards God, Krishna. Because the internal energy, just as the external energy goes away from God externally, internal energy will bring you always towards Krishna. Yatha-lingam sambuddhi. So just like the flow of the Ganga river always moves towards the ocean, non-stop, day and night. So tat-guna shruti matra.
So could we say that the ultimate expression of this internal potency is Radharani?
Yeah, she is the devotion that is there. She is the source, she is the personification of that. Thank you.